Hello there, and today we will be going over the different parts and systems of the human body. The first system we will be going over is the skeletal system. The skeletal system is derived of bones connected by a tissue called ligaments and joints, which allow motion within the human body. The skeletal system has many purposes, including support, structure, red blood cells created within the bones, protection, like the skull protects the brain, and many more. Within the bones are many layers of rough protective tissue until you get to the spongy bone. Inside the core of the bone is the bone marrow, a cavity in which red blood cells are made and then transported out of the bone. To allow movement within the skeleton system, in between most bones is a joint. Joints allow movement in different directions depending on the joint's type. There are many different types of joints. Hinge joints move up and down like the hinge on a door and are found in your fingers but not in your thumb. Ball and socket joints can move in a 180-degree angle parallel to where the joint is, as seen in arm circles, and can also move close to an 85-degree angle on an angle perpendicular to it, as seen in jumping jacks, and are found in your shoulder and hip. Pivot joints can move around and twist, also known as pivoting, and are found in your neck. Joints and bones allow movement, but to actually move and perform functions, humans use muscles. Muscles are organs that contract and relax in unison to make movement in the human body. Muscles account for most of the body's energy uses in the form of ATP created by the cell's mitochondria. There are 3 different types of muscles that perform 3 different basic functions. The first type of muscle is smooth muscle. Smooth muscles control automatic functions in the body that, for the most part, you don't have to think about. These muscles are either controlled by the nervous system automatically or respond to hormones sent to it. They are also called involuntary muscles because you don't control them. An example of smooth muscle is your intestines. The second type of muscle is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscles are also called voluntary muscles because you need to control them for them to move. Skeletal muscles are most of the muscles in your body that move when you control them. These muscles make up most of the picture that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. Most skeletal muscles are attached to bones using tendons, in which hold the bone like elastic and make the muscle move the bone. An example of skeletal muscle is your biceps. The last type of muscle is cardiac muscle. There isn't too much to say about cardiac muscles. They are found in the heart and they control rhythm. They are a mix of voluntary and involuntary because they can either be controlled by the brain or hormones. Now that we have movement through the skeletal and muscle systems, we need something to protect not only them, but the whole body. One of the aspects of life is sensitivity, the ability to respond to what happens around you. The skin allows for all of these things in very individual ways. There are 3 layers of skin, which include the epidermis on the top, the dermis in the middle, and the fatty layer or subcutaneous tissue on the bottom. The only part of the skin that is visible without cutting into the skin is the epidermis. The epidermis is the part of the skin that is exposed to the environment and has pigment that help the body take in the sunlight better, which are adapted to heat. The dermis is, in my opinion, the most important of all the layers. It is definitely the largest layer of skin because it is double the size of both the other layers combined. The dermis holds important tissue that not only help the skin cells themselves, but also the whole body. The dermis has hairs in it which perform massive roles in sensitivity and protection from the cold. The dermis also holds sweat glands which disperse water on the epidermis to protect from heat. It also has small arteries and veins, but we can save those for the fatty layer. It also has nerves, but we will cover those later. The fatty layer is the last layer of skin. The fatty layer holds many nutrients and also has major arteries and veins in which supply the skin with energy. It's filled with fatty tissue that are very greasy and perfect for holding the nutrients inside. The next system we will go over is the digestive system. The digestive system will digest the nutrients to take them in. There are many different types of enzymes that will help digest different types of nutrients, and also mechanical functions to break up the food without the use of chemicals. Digestion is generally a mixture of both chemical processes and mechanical processes. The mouth is a major part of digestion as it plays a huge role in the intake of food. The mouth has teeth, which include the following types. The molars are used for grinding, which can help break through the rough cellulose walls of plants. The canines can tear and cut with the sharper edge, generally used for meats. The incisors are used for cutting, like the canines, but are used for both plants and meats. The mouth also has saliva, which contains amylase. Amylase is an enzyme used for breaking down starch into sugar, and is useful on wheat and wheat products. From the mouth, what's left of the food goes down the esophagus, a long tube with muscles in it that leads to the stomach. The muscles in the esophagus can be both voluntary and involuntary. You either think about swallowing, yes, these are the muscles in swallowing, or when you are asleep, you don't need to think about swallowing. Either way, the esophagus gets whatever is going down into it to the stomach. Inside the stomach, the food is dissolved by the acid made by the stomach. The name of the acid is called gastric acid, and which contains hydrochloric acid. As a science ingredient, it's lowered down to HCl. The hydrochloric acid in your stomach has a pH of 1, which can burn through your skin when placed on it directly. Also in the stomach acid is pepsin, an enzyme that is used for breaking down proteins. After the stomach, there may be some proteins left, but there are other enzymes that will break those down further on. The stomach walls are directly protected by mucus, because without that mucus, the stomach acid would burn a hole in the wall of the stomach called a stomach ulcer. This new material created by the stomach, which is a mix of nutrients and acid, is called chyme and will go into the small intestine, passing by the pancreas. The pancreas adds to the chyme with its own digestive enzymes. The first one is amylase, which is the starch breaker in saliva that will break down any missed starch. The second one is protease, which will break down any extra protein left by the gastric acid. This last enzyme released by the pancreas is lipase, which will break down all the fats. This is all released at the beginning of the small intestine. The small intestine, which is generally around 7 meters or 23 feet long, is lined with villi, which help the intestine absorb nutrients in the chyme while leaving all the acids to go through the intestine. After all the nutrients in the chyme are absorbed, what's left goes to the large intestine. In the large intestine, the body tries to absorb all of the waters and acids to make whatever is left to go out of the system to be only waste. Most of the time in the digestive system is spent in the large intestine, which happens to be smaller than the small intestine. From there, whatever is left is excreted from the anus. For cells to function, they use ATP, which is a process of glucose absorbed by the small intestine, but the cell also needs oxygen to respire. This oxygen is transported around the body through the bloodstream. The blood has many different parts which serve the functions of transporting oxygen around the body, fighting away harmful bacteria and viruses, and clotting up cuts. There are 4 main ingredients in blood. These ingredients include red blood cells that hold and transfer oxygen with the cells. Red blood cells contain hemoglobin that allow the cells to change color when they have or don't have oxygen. White blood cells that hunt down bacteria and use endocytosis to consume the harmful germ. Platelets that look for holes in the bloodstream to clot up and create scabs on those spots. And plasma that contains the following nutrients: proteins, hormones, enzymes, and all the other materials that may come of use, like sugars and fats. With the blood, we need a way to spread it around the body for complete functionality. The blood is part of the circulatory system, as well as the heart and the lungs. The heart will pump the blood around the body, and the lungs will have oxygen collected from the respiratory system to put through the bloodstream to help the cells respire. The human heart has 4 chambers, which are the left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, and right ventricle. All the openings to the heart are blocked off by valves that allow the blood to flow through without going backwards. The left atrium and ventricle handle the red blood cells that contain carbon dioxide, while the right side handles the oxygenated red blood cells. The atriums are entrances to the heart and have valves that block off blood from falling backwards. The ventricles are the main source of pumping blood as they contract and relax to thrust the blood through the system. The left ventricle pumps into the lungs to oxygenate the red blood cells, while the right ventricle pumps the blood downwards into the rest of the body in arteries and back up the left side in veins. The right side of the heart is also pumping its own blood. When those arteries are clogged, causes a heart attack. The oxygen in the bloodstream comes from the lungs, which are also a part of the respiratory system. In the respiratory system, the body gets its oxygen and disposes its carbon dioxide. The respiratory system starts with either the nose or mouth. When you take in a breath, oxygen is pulled down into the upper throat. In the upper throat is the epiglottis that blocks off food from entering your respiratory system and allows air down to a pathway to the lungs. Below the epiglottis is a trachea, which will lead further into the lungs. After the trachea, the pipes are split into two bronchial tubes, in which lead to both of the lungs. In either lung, the tubes are split into bronchioles until they cover the whole area of the lungs. At the end, these tiny pipes are alveoli, in which contain oxygen and exchange that oxygen with carbon dioxide in the red blood cells. Exhaling works the same as inhaling, as the carbon dioxide comes up the trachea and out through either the mouth or the nose. The skin protects the body from external features, but the body somehow needs a way of killing invading threats. Like the red blood cells are created inside the bone marrow, the white blood cells are made in the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is not only the body's main source of internal protection, but also cleans up and refines cellular waste and blood. These fluids are transported through the body in the form of lymph. Lymph travels through the lymph vessels that are placed throughout the body and generally follows the circulatory system. Also spread around the body are lymph nodes, in which function towards the immunity part of the lymphatic system. The lymph nodes are responsible for storing B, T, and natural killer cells. These will work for hunting and killing harmful germs all around the body and are distributed by the lymph nodes. All the lymphatic system seems like a network of vessels and nodes. There are also many important organs that play a major role in all the functions of the lymphatic system. The first one of these organs are the tonsils. The tonsils are the body's first order of defense against invading germs and rest in the back of the mouth. The tonsils make and manufacture T cells that attack germs, but most of the T cells will come from the thymus, which will be covered later on. Most people associate the tonsils most with getting them removed. That is because the tonsils can inflame either naturally or through a malfunction with bacterial infection. An inflamed tonsil will cause trouble in the mouth's regular functions. Because the thymus makes most of the T cells, people prefer to have the tonsils cut out. The second of these organs is the spleen. The spleen is a major part of both the immune system and controlling lymph, and it lies next to the stomach. To start, the spleen takes the waste from the cells contained in the lymph and filters them to keep any useful material inside the body, like iron. As part of the immune system, it stores platelets and white blood cells in which will enter the body in the bloodstream. Not only does the spleen filter materials or waste, but it also filters blood. Old blood cells can be recycled in the spleen and be renewed into fresh red blood cells. The last of the lymphatic organs is the thymus. The thymus is the primary source of T cells that will be spread around the body as part of the immune system. The thymus can store information about a pathogen that the T cells have found in the past, so T cells can adapt to old and new germs. The thymus is down in the chest, having easy access to the respiratory system, where it can be spread around the body in the bloodstream. Now that the body has all its major parts, it needs a way of working together. The nervous system sends messages to the brain in short time, which has an effect that lasts for a short period of time. But hormones can have long-lasting chemical reactions for the body. Hormones are spread around the body through the endocrine system. The endocrine system consists of many hormone-sending glands spread around the body and are controlled all by one, the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is a tiny gland in the brain that releases hormones that control all the glands in the endocrine system. The pituitary gland sends all its hormones around using the circulatory system because it is connected to many blood vessels to get the hormones where they need to go. The pituitary gland is also connected to the hypothalamus, which processes what the nervous system and the senses tell the brain and tells the pituitary to release hormones in accordance to what is happening. The pituitary gland is split into two parts, the posterior and anterior. The posterior part of the pituitary prevents water loss in the bladder and also causes many simple functions like anxiety. The anterior part of the pituitary does most of the work in the endocrine system. The anterior can stimulate the adrenal gland, thyroid, gonads, sperm and egg creation, and the mammary glands. In short, the pituitary controls all of the other glands and some organs by the request of the brain. The next gland in the endocrine system found in the neck is the thyroid. The thyroid is responsible for metabolism or energy use, protein creations from amino acids inside the cell, and how the body reacts to hormones. What I mean by that is how severe the body's reactions to some hormones are, like how long the effects last. That is all controlled by the thyroid. The gland after the thyroid is the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is conveniently placed right above the kidney and controls the level of salt in the kidney. However, the adrenal gland has a special task placed on it. That task is to distribute adrenaline throughout the body. If you do not know what adrenaline is, when you are in danger or on a roller coaster or something like that, your adrenal gland distributes adrenaline, which speeds up your heart rate and makes everything speed up in your body as a natural defense mechanism. The pancreas, although having a role in digesting many different types of nutrients, is also part of the endocrine system. The main role of the pancreas is to control the levels of glucose around the body. Like the adrenal gland with adrenaline, the pancreas does not spike the levels of blood sugar in times of danger. Instead, it tells other organs like the liver either to store glucose or release some of the stored sugar. The last glands in the endocrine system are the gonads, which are responsible for regulating themselves. They release testosterone on the male side and estrogens on the female side. They also release many more hormones that do very basic functions like reducing the activity of the gallbladder and many more. The activity of the gonads releasing hormones spikes during puberty, prompting both growth and development of the whole body. I hope you enjoyed watching this presentation as much as I did making it. Overall, the body needs every single part of it or we would not be in the same place we are today. That's all I have to say for this, and so I say goodbye.